Well, thank you. So I'll assume that you folks have either looked at the book, maybe read some of the book.
Yes.
Those of you in the room I can see right now, how many of you have been through the book and started to implement any of it? I'm curious. Okay. For the rest of you, it's daunting. It's a challenge. When you look at this book, when you see all that stuff, they're actually very simple procedures and techniques, but you're not born doing them. And to build a habit where you make a commitment with somebody and say, oh yeah, I'll get back to you about that, right that moment. If it were me, I pull this out and I write that down. That takes 2 years for the best of you to build that habit. Because you're so seduced by thinking that because, oh yeah, I told them I'm going to remember. Oh yeah, right. Your head is an absolutely crappy office. Your brain did not evolve to remember, remind, prioritize, or manage relationships with more than guess how many things. New cognitive science research, 4 is it. The baby's crying, there's a thunderstorm coming, there might be a bear up there, I'm hungry, that's it. If you got anything more than that in your head, you're going to be driven by whatever's latest and loudest, not by your strategies and your values. And don't shoot the messenger, guys. That's just the truth. Now, how much of that you want to implement, how much of that you decide that is important to you is really up to you. And the real strange truth about GTD, or getting things done, is it's not so much about getting things done. It's about being appropriately engaged with your life. Are you appropriately engaged right now with your health? Are you appropriately engaged with your weight? Are you appropriately engaged with your relationships? Are you appropriately engaged with your dog? Are you appropriately engaged with the business plan? Are you appropriately engaged with your clients? That's it. It's that simple. Because what you're not appropriately engaged with is going to start to distract you and wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning and prevent you from being present with being loving and present with your kids, or really cooking the best spaghetti you could, or, you know, or dancing the tango, or whatever the hell it is you want to do. So it's really about being present. And so I just discovered the algorithm, or the formula, about how it is that you take this complex life that you're in, still manage that complex life, but not have it eat you up. And that's a martial art. It's tricky. It's not going to show up naturally or automatically. You know, a lot of people have parts of this already automatic. Come on, there's nothing new in this. How many of you have ever felt overwhelmed or confused and sat down and made a list and you felt better? You ever do that? Well, okay, here's a big duh. If you reversed engineered that, why did you feel nothing changed in your world except the most important thing that changed, which is how you are engaged with your world just changed by objectifying it externally. So if you actually figured that out, you'd never keep anything in your head the rest of your life. And I don't. That'll be obvious here in a minute if it's not already. Not much going on up here. Except this. Could it be? Oh yeah, I got tons of stuff to do. I just looked at all of it and said, you're it right now. I made a mistake. I don't know, maybe this would be a wrong thing to do, but at least for me, I'm present here. So some of you probably already had your minds trail off into something that had nothing to do with what I've been saying, and I've only been talking for 5 minutes. Right? And where your head went, if where it went was to do creative developmental thinking down track your brain had never been before, I'd say, hey, dude, stay there. That's a cool place to go. That's not where most of you went, if you went. Where you went was to something that you're not appropriately engaged with. You're thinking about a divorce. You're thinking about cat food you need. You're thinking about you need a new career. You're thinking about the tires on your car. You're thinking about what you got to do tomorrow morning. Why? You can't do anything about any of those while you're sitting there. The reason it pops into your head is you're inappropriately engaged with them, and there's a part of your psyche that keeps banging you on the head. What are you going to do now? What are you going to do? So you have to decide whether you want to get rid of the nyes. Right? If you do, you got work to do. You're going to have to implement what you read in that book. You're going to have to write stuff down as it occurs to you. You're going to have to decide sooner than later what you need to do about them, if anything, the action step required and the outcome, desired. You're going to have to organize the results of that thinking of things you can't finish in the moment into some sort of trusted external system, so you can be reminded of the appropriate things at the right time. When you go out for errands, you should see every single errand you need to do that's going to move the needle on any moving part in your life right now. If you don't have that list, I'm sorry, guys, you're wasting time. And by the way, you don't need time, you need space. How much time does it take to have a good idea? 0. How much time does it take to be creative? 0. How much time does it take to be strategic? 0. How much time does it take to be loving and present with your kids or with your spaghetti or whatever? 0. Those don't require time, and yet most of you would probably say those are kind of the golden goodies in life. Be creative, be strategic, be innovative, be loving, be present. Yeah, those don't require time, but they require room. If you're taking one meeting to the next in your head, if you're taking home to work in your mind and work to home in your mind, you're not in a mind like water state. I'm sorry. So sorry, at 73, I'm a little cranky and direct. Hope you don't mind.
You are
But there you have it. You don't need to read. If you just got what I just said, you don't need to read the book. That was it.
Yeah, sure. Very direct. Thank you.
Sure.
So can we have time for some more questions, David?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So how can I make sure that a task will really only take me 2 minutes?
Age. Get older, experience. You'll find out things take longer than they take. So just start to practice. Actually, for about 5 years, I kept a 2-minute timer on my desk. So I would see what 2 minutes actually was. See, once you get into something, you lose track of time, so you don't really know how long things really take to do that. So it'd be a good idea to get something around you, at least for a little while, so you get a sense of what'll take 2 minutes. And 2 minutes was just a, it's kind of like, well, 2 minutes is sort of the edge where if it takes less than 2 minutes to do it, it would take you longer to stack it, track it, and remind yourself about it than it would be to actually finish it. But if I'm on a 10-hour plane ride across the Atlantic, I'll do things that take 10 minutes just because I got time to do it. Why not? But 2-minute rule, basically the whole idea is you want to get to the bottom of N. You want to get the bottom of your inputs before you start making, strategic decisions about how to allocate your time. So, you want to kind of get rid of all the stuff that's like instant and easy and quick. And then it's a lot easier to then assess, where do I want to spend the next 15 or 20 minutes or 2 hours, given what you're doing. It's just a very practical technique.
Okay, and so the next question would be, what has to happen on a mental level so that we decide to really stop the habit of postponing or procrastinating?
You mean being distracted by Facebook, things like that?
Things like that. Mm-hmm.
Decide where you're going and what's important to you and how important Facebook is to you. Now, come on, guys. I avoided my life when I was 14 by calling my girlfriend and talk for 2 hours on the telephone. But that's before most of you were born. I avoided my life by just scanning, and the phone book yellow pages were such fun to go through. I avoided my life by hanging out at the bulletin board at college or the laundromat and seeing, bikes for sale and apartments for rent or whatever. What's new? What's new is how all that's in your pockets right now.
Yeah.
Right. So the distractions are still there. Everybody thought the telephone would end the world. They thought the car would end the world. They thought, everybody thought all this stuff is going to end the world, but don't shoot the medium. What a great time to be alive. Come on. I have a whole community of people around the world. I live in Amsterdam, but that's okay. I have a virtual world of incredibly cool folks that I stay in touch with a little bit on Facebook, somewhat regularly on Instagram. I've got 1 million Twitter followers. So, but I just walk into those like a cocktail party. You know, you walk in, you explore, you have fun, you get bored, you go out, right? No big deal. But if you're changing careers and you want to leverage your network or you want to build your brand, you damn well better be spending some quality time on your social media, you know, because it's strategic to you. So it's not about the medium, it's about what does it mean to you? And I don't know, there's maybe a longer answer or a sidebar answer to what you really asked. But you just have to decide what's important to you. And that's the good news about these days, is because it's so, everybody is so potentially distracted. It's just going to force everybody to get more conscious about what's important to you, where you're going.
Sure.
Okay, so piggybacking off of that, what function do you think the checklist has in the GTD system?
Everything's a checklist. How many of you checked your calendar in the last 2 days? That's a checklist. Everything's a checklist. Everything you want to check to orient yourself in space and time is a checklist. It's all checklist. So, isn't it? It's stuff to check. I need to check whether, you know, I've packed everything for the trip. I need to check, you know, that that the kids are all fine with all the stuff that they need for their school year. I need to check. So any of those, if you're trying to keep those in your head, you're screwed. So, you know, you need about 150 checklists. I have a checklist of all the cool movies I've ever seen that we might want to then, you know, go, you know, and organized by romance and fun and guy flicks and adventure. Those are all checklists. It's all stuff to look at. Hey, I'm ready to look at a movie. Let me look. Right? I'm ready to buy some wine. I got, you know, great wine lists.
Okay, and in this time, in this day and age, we have such a vast option of thousands of applications and tools. It seems that each day we achieve less, and so much, like such a big market has a contrary effect. What do you think that happens?
It's productivity porn, you know. You didn't make your last tools work, so you want the next new one, and the next new one, that's going to fix me. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get the next next new. There's nothing been a better list manager than the Palm Pilot. Any of you old enough to remember the Palm Pilot?
Yeah.
So simple. All you need are checklists. Right? So any of that stuff, and if you just want the next new, it's because you didn't make the last new work. And so people get really wrapped around the tool, and that's okay. You know, come on, you could smoke dope instead. So they're better ways. You know, it's not a bad way to waste your time. Just go explore all the different tools that are available out there. But you could just use lists in Word. I know a whole lot of people that do GTD just in Excel because they're kind of geek freaks and they love, you know, they know macros in Excel and they've set all that up. And a whole lot of high-tech people are going back to paper planners now. Quite frankly, because the paper planner is actually a better map and a better way to see the whole gestalt of all your life and work in its multiple contexts than anything digital yet. Come on, I've had 2 Thunderbolt screens in my face and still never had enough real estate in my digital world to see the whole context of my life like I could with my paper planner that I used for 20 years. So there's no perfect tool out there. So they're just list managers. So there's, how do I need to manage the checklist and my orientation things that I need to see, you know? And so any of those things can work as long as you work them.
David, we were discussing before starting our session that we know that you have been, you know, globally with your system. Have you seen any difference in cultures? I mean, we here in Mexico, but we have also so many coaches from Latin America. Have you seen any difference how to be more productive and to handle?
Well, you guys have to get over your comfort zone of mañana. That's all. Well, or accept mañana. See, it's not, right? If mañana is fine with you, you're cool. You're already there. You're in a mind like water. If mañana is not fine with you, you got to get over it. But the brief answer is no. I've never seen any cultural bias. We do this work, and I'm going to South Africa next week. You know, I'll be in Moscow in May. I'll be in London next month. I'll be in Prague. You know, and I've done this work in Chile. I've done it in Venezuela. I've done it in Colombia. I've done it in, you know, in all over. So we've never seen any difference. As a matter of fact, when you get people attracted to GTD, the strange paradox is the people most attracted to this are the people who need it the least. They're already the most productive, positive, proactive, aspirational people you'll ever meet, right? And if any, for most of you probably, as I look around, I'm just making an intuitive guess here, most people of your friends or relatives who see you going to a book club and reading GTD, they say, why the hell do you need this? You're the most productive, organized person I know. I'll bet you. Right? And if you start to hang out with GTD, we're doing a global summit, you know, in Amsterdam in June. We're going to have 1,500 people from around the world. And every one of those people will love hanging out with anybody else. And they'll have more in common with each other than you will with your neighbor or your cousin in terms of the interest in this. So by the time somebody is in a busy life and knows the power of system already and just wants more space to be able to do more cool stuff because they're involved in cool stuff, but they feel limited about that, those are the people attracted to this, and that's universal. You'll find that everywhere. I've never seen an exception to that.
Yeah.
By the way, the Italians say, yeah, we're kind of a manana romance. You know, don't feel special about that. It's, you know, I mean, anybody south of something.
Okay, so we have, I think I have a list of questions from people. We have two more.
Do we have time?
Do we have time for two more
Sure.
questions?
Yeah, I got about 5 more minutes. That's fine.
Okay. So how do you, David, organize your work week? Like, how do you distribute your time between clarifying and projects, et cetera?
I just do what I feel like doing. You know, what I built in are some of the really core GTD habits. One is emptying backlog on a 24 to 48 hour basis. So I've got no backlog, you know, hanging out there. The second thing is the weekly review. Once a week, I catch up, you know, and lift up to a little higher horizon and bring up and get my lists all current and get the air clean again. Because come on, life comes at all of us a lot faster than we can keep it necessarily clarified, organized, and whatever on a minute-to-minute basis, but you better let that go longer than a week before you clean up and get to sort of zero again in terms of what all that stuff is about. And if you're doing that, especially if your lists are complete, meaning there's nothing in your head, it's all out in your external brain, that's going to hardwire your intuitive intelligence to make a lot more trusted choices intuitively and spontaneously as you go through your week. Come on, guys, you don't have time to think. You don't have time to think. When you guys leave this session, you don't have time to think. You need to have already thought, right? So some part of you can then trust oh, okay, should I take that call or not? Oh God, it's from my mom. Oh shit, okay. Yes or no, right? So those kind of minute-to-minute judgment calls you're gonna have to make as the world is coming at you. The more you've sort of matured your ability to be able to see your larger gestalt, your larger inventory of all those commitments consistently, it's going to make that a whole lot easier.